Hello, everyone. Today we're going to read Global Public Goods and the Protocol Sync Thesis. So this article has been a long time coming, and it was originally supposed to be just about the protocol sync and what the protocol sync is. But as writing happens, thoughts develop. And so I added this new aspect, which is the global public goods aspect to the protocol sync. And really, this article tries to answer the question, what is at the bottom of the protocol sync? You were probably only familiar with the protocol sync if you were listening to me and Ryan on the Bankless podcast talk about it and tweet about it. So this article also does define what that protocol sync actually is. So let's go ahead and get into it. Ethereum is a platform for global public goods in the realm of money and finance. The protocol sync thesis illustrates how applications move from being financial experiments to unstoppable global financial platforms used by everyone. The more people use an application, the further down in the protocol sync it falls, and the more things that collect at the bottom of the protocol sync, the stronger Ethereum's gravitational pull grows. This is just an awesome GIF, kind of illustrating how there's like this network on top of the world, this layer on top of the world, and it's all these protocols. Like there's Ethereum, but then the protocols themselves are also layered upon the world. The protocol sync. The protocol sync thesis offers a model for how crypto systems will manifest at maturity. The thesis states that the more trustless, permissionless, and credibly neutral a protocol is, the further it can scale itself to a global platform, and as a consequence, absorb a larger amount of capital. Protocols that offer a platform to build upon become dense and fall down to the bottom of the protocol sync from the collective weight of the people and companies building on them. Web3 DeFi protocols like Uniswap, Compound, and Maker will survive in the long term by removing attack vectors and gaining anti-fragility, which will allow them to break through the limits on the scale that the Web2 applications have reached. Sorry. Two key features predict where a protocol finds its resting place in the protocol sync: utility and surface area. Utility of a protocol is the value that the protocol brings to its users and generates the incentive for adopting and leveraging the protocol. The utility of a protocol is the incentive it generates for depositing money and assets into contracts. The total value of assets deposited into an application, think the value locked in DeFi, right? Everything that we see on DeFi Pulse. For protocols with a token, utility can be measured by the token's market cap or the total value deposited into its contracts. Surface area. The attack surface area of a protocol is the weakness or resistance a protocol has to capture, coercion, corruption, and exploit. If a protocol has a large attack surface, it can be captured, coerced, and exploited to benefit some individuals over others, which invalidates the credible neutrality of the protocol. The elimination of attack surface area reduces the ways that a protocol favors one set of individuals over everyone else. If a protocol has minimal attack surfaces, the protocol is trustless, permissionless, and credibly neutral. These qualities are what enable it to scale to the maximum number of people. This increases the protocol's potential for receiving more deposits from a wider set of users and thus impacts its weight. Protocol density. To discover the projected density of a protocol or application on Ethereum, you simply take the utility of a protocol, how useful it is, and then you divide it by its attack surface area, how easy it is to capture that utility. Things that are very useful and cannot be captured will find themselves at the bottom of the protocol sync. Dense protocols are found at the bottom. Density limits in Web 2. We've seen early indications of the presence of the protocol sync from the large Web 2 platforms like YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, in which almost all companies and businesses have profiles on these platforms, right? Like Ford, Baskin and Robbins, whatever, Disney, they all have like Facebook accounts. They all have Twitter accounts. So all companies have these Twitter accounts, and then also all people have Twitter accounts. These are platforms for other people to build on. Even further, platforms like the iOS App Store and Android Play Store are found in the deeper layers of the protocol sync due to the mass of companies that build on the products on top of them. The Web 2 gargantuans like Google, Apple, Amazon, Facebook, Twitter are all found somewhere in the protocol sink, not necessarily at the bottom, definitely not at the bottom. These companies achieve their mass valuations because they built platforms for others to build on. Businesses, individuals, nonprofits, social organizations all have free access to sign up and use their service, and the Web 2 platforms become global infrastructure used by everyone. These companies have succeeded in scale by creating a global platform through a product with lots of utility while also being relatively laissez-faire about what users can or cannot do on their platform. The Web 2 movement illustrates the presence of the same outcomes that the protocol sink thesis predict. Global, non-rivalrous, non-exclusionary platforms like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Medium have seen incredible adoption and growth due to the density they amass from free user-generated content and their ability to scale to the widest audience possible. However, being a product from a for-profit company that answers to nation-state regulators places a limit on the scale of these platforms. The incentive of the company to extract as much as possible out of the user in order to generate revenue from the advertiser is inherently misaligning between all three parties, another limit on scale. The Web 2 movement is built upon the highly dense protocols of the Web 1 layer. TCP/IP, HTTP, FTP are some of the world's most densely built/discovered protocols and represents the bottom-most layer of the protocol sink. We don't talk about these much because of how invisible they are to us. And unlike Web3 protocols, they aren't things to invest or profit from. They have perfect credible neutrality. Web3 protocols, applications found on Ethereum, should strive to achieve the same level of credible neutrality as the protocols of Web 1. Twitter, Facebook, YouTube are all free global services, and they have provided much value to the world. But ultimately, they are the private property of a single company. These products benefit a certain group of people above all others and enable the influence and coercion of the people that use them. As these platforms have reached maturity, conversations have emerged about their monopoly status and their biased nature. As it turns out, the human subjectivity involved with monitoring content limits their neutrality and prevents them from being an unbiased protocol. Additionally, being a centralized company forces them to be subject to the rules and regulations of a nation-state government. The free sign-up and entrance into these platforms, as well as the value they provide, made these platforms incredibly useful, but the existence of a centralized for-profit company has placed limits on how far these platforms can scale or the freedoms that they have. No matter how much utility these companies provide, they will never provide enough to sink to the bottom of the protocol sink. In order to fall down the protocol sink, you cannot be a for-profit company that answers to government regulation and subjective human desires. The bias, trust, and permission present in these platforms is the Achilles heel that paints a target on the back of the operators. In order to fall down deeper in the protocol sink, you must be a self-regulating global protocol that doesn't require a central operator to uphold the system. The protocol itself must be self-sovereign. Prediction of the protocol sink thesis. The core prediction of the protocol sink thesis is that the centralized businesses and companies will freely build on top of trustless, permissionless, and unbiased protocols in order to offer superior services to their users. As a result, crypto economic protocols are destined to fall below the centralized companies in the protocol sink. Simple game theory suggests that centralized companies like crypto banks, Coinbase, Gemini, will leverage the power of decentralized protocols beneath them in order to increase their value to their customers. So here's a little graphic that Ryan Sean Adams made where we have like DeFi and then we also have crypto banks. But the prediction is that crypto banks are going to build on top of DeFi. While right now they're mostly in parallel, but soon we're going to see like the DeFi is going to win a thumb war and crypto banks are going to build on top of DeFi. Any crypto bank can improve its product and services by enabling users to access the DAI savings rate, for example, the DSR. Customers with DAI in their account can one-click themselves into earning the APR offered by the DSR. While crypto banks compete with themselves, none of them compete with the DSR, and none of them have anything to lose by leveraging it. While Coinbase and Gemini are rivalrous, using the DSR is not. This allows the DSR to scale to any financial institution or individual who chooses to use it. You can repeat this same model for any protocol or application on Ethereum: Maker, Compound, Pool Together, Augur. Global public goods are the things that are found at the bottom of the protocol sink. Useful protocols have removed trust, bias, and permission will find themselves leveraged by companies, businesses, banks, and individuals from all over the world. Global public goods do not answer to or even recognize nation-state regulations. Air, water, knowledge, and internet protocols are all the same all over the globe and do not change based on the regulations of a jurisdiction. They are something that everyone can use regardless of where they live. And Ethereum is a platform for hosting global public goods in money and finance. All right, sinks, attractors, and basins. This is going to be like a slight detour into some metaphysical, sciencey type shit. The sink in a protocol sink is not talking about your kitchen sink, although that is relevant. Rather, a sink is a place of convergence. A sink is an environment that defines the borders and limits of a closed system, which influences the trajectory and the outcomes of all the chaotic, nebulous set of individual units inside of it. A sink forces the convergence of independent, chaotic things into a singular, ordered pattern of dependable, predictable outcomes. In mathematics, an attractor, also known as a sink, is a condition or a set of conditions towards which a system tends to evolve for a wide variety of starting conditions of the system. System values get close enough to the attractor values system values that get close enough to the attractor values remain close even if disturbed. Over time, things converge upon a stable condition regardless of their starting condition. The place that things converge upon, the attractor, is not actually a thing, but rather the emergent location of many independent things that have shown to converge upon it. Nothing central is actually attracting them there, but rather the collective emergent forces of the universe pushes them into a common order. So this is basically stating that you have this sink, you have this basin, you have this realm, and then there are certain conditions of that realm, and the conditions of that realm will, no matter like how many times we roll the dice, no how many times we run the simulation, things will always converge upon the same outcomes at the end of the day. Another word for sink is a basin. Below is a map of the river basins of the USA. Most notably, the Mississippi Basin is in pink is one of the world's largest basins. Any droplet of water that falls anywhere inside the pink region is assured to ultimately find itself at the point of convergence, where the Mississippi River meets the Atlantic Ocean. So like the Mississippi Basin, all this is one massive basin. And so it doesn't matter what happens, because whenever any rainfall happens anywhere, it always goes to the same spot. Things converge. Outcomes are the same. The Mississippi Basin is the sink. Gravity is the force that generates the energy that creates convergence at the bottom. Ethereum is a basin. Ethereum apps are the creeks, streams, rivers that reside within it. Money, assets, and capital is the water that flows downstream. There is an attractor at the bottom of the protocol sink that pulls applications and assets downwards. And this attractor is the universal collective global demand for global public goods. Take a look at this real quick, because I'm going to talk about it. This graphic has been going around Twitter recently and perfectly represents the protocol sink. Things on Ethereum converge. They coalesce and collectively descend down the protocol sink. It also illustrates how Ethereum is not just a bunch of separate applications, but is instead one single coherent network of interconnecting applications. The demand for global platforms with user-generated value is ubiquitous and generates a perpetual incentive to build applications on Ethereum. Ethereum is the sink for minimally extractive coordinators, an internet basin that converges on permissionless, trustless, and unbiased applications in money and finance. The fundamental innovation that Ethereum provides is as a system that offers free security and protection to applications that aspire to be global public goods. I guess I have two sections titled The Protocol Sink. Global public goods are what is found at the bottom of the protocol sink. The crypto economic revolution is built on the fundamental assumption that, in its final form, this revolution will have spawned an array of global public goods in money and finance. Global public goods are, by definition, the most scalable, usable, dependable, and persistent infrastructure that we have available. And the qualities that make a good global public good are the same qualities that push a protocol down the protocol sink. There are two characteristics that determine a protocol's place in the protocol sink: attack surface and utility. Attack surface is the measure that illustrates the protocol's weakness to capture and control. Simplistically, having a low attack surface simply means that there is no central point of a protocol. Trust, permission, and bias are the characteristics that determine where the center of a protocol is, or how easy it is to develop, difficult it is to capture a protocol. Trustlessness. When using a protocol, how much trust are users placing in others to do the right thing? Will the selfish motives of others impact the outcome of other users? Is anyone extracting anything from a user against their will or knowledge? If trust is not an issue, the protocol will fall down further in the protocol sink. Permissionlessness. Can anyone use the protocol? Is there someone that can restrict or censor usage of the protocol? Are there admin keys that give certain privileges to a special set of users? If everyone has equal access to the protocol and no one can censor others, the protocol will fall down further in the protocol sink. Credible neutrality. Does the protocol benefit any particular user or entity above any other? Does one person or entity disproportionately benefit from the success of the protocol than what is fair? If the protocol is sufficiently fair or equitable, then it will fall further down the protocol sink. Utility is simply the measure of value that a protocol provides to the world. The more useful a protocol is, the more people, companies, entities will build on top of it. When a protocol has high utility, more value, more capital will be deposited into the application. This generates mass, which adds to the density. If the protocol has utility, it will fall further down the protocol sink. Each characteristic above has its own spectrum. An application can be anywhere on the 0 to 100 scale for both attack surface and utility. Further, the total score of the characteristics illustrates the density of the applications in relation to each other. This scoring system is largely just for illustrative purposes, just to illustrate the metaphor. I'm going to call this the GPG score later in the article, the Global Public Goods Score. Assets and applications. The protocol sink doesn't only apply to applications on Ethereum, but assets as well. On Ethereum, assets are applications. Not applications are tokens, but all tokens are applications. Applications on Ethereum are defined by a contract with its own address. If it's a contract on Ethereum, it's an app. In the glass cylinder above, we have both liquids and solids of various densities. Like the liquids, the solids find their appropriate place in the protocol sink that corresponds with their native density. The Global Public Goods Score applies to assets just as much as applications. All right, here we get into public goods. Wikipedia's definition of a public good. In economics, a public good is a good that is both non-excludable and non-rivalrous, in that individuals cannot be excluded from use or could benefit from without paying for it, and where use by one individual does not reduce availability to others or the good can be used simultaneously by more than one person. This is in contrast to a common good, such as wild fish stocks in the ocean, which is non-excludable but is rivalrous to a certain degree, as if too many fish are harvested, the stocks will be depleted. Non-excludability. A good is excludable if it is possible to prevent people who have not paid for it from having access to it. A good or service is non-excludable if non-paying customers cannot be prevented from accessing it. Non-rivalrous. A good is rivalrous if its consumption is by one consumer prevents the consumption by another, or if consumption by one party reduces the ability of another party to consume it. A good is considered non-rivalrous if, for any level of production, the cost of providing it to a marginal individual is zero. Public goods do not get exhausted the more that they are used. Air, water, sunlight are all public goods. Listening to a radio broadcast does not prevent others from also listening. Streetlights illuminate the roads for everyone equally. As with all things, there is a spectrum involved. Streams and lakes are public goods. Anyone can use them, and they are very difficult to deplete. However, they can be depleted. While they are depletion resistant, the scaling of the human species has shown that it does have the capacity to deplete even the largest reservoirs of public goods. A river has a nearly endless supply of water thanks to the cycles of the seasons that migrate precipitation higher in elevation. However, there is a rate limit to which water migrates upstream. If the consumption rate passes the supply rate, scarcity takes over, and public goods turn into rivalrous ones. Sunlight pours endlessly across the earth, but there is finite space available to capture it. Physical space is endless and inexhaustible, except some spaces are more valuable than other spaces, which makes them rivalrous. Global public goods are public goods, but their benefits extend to all countries, people, and generations. Global public goods have the ability to scale far beyond the typical public good. The ability for some public goods to extend to a global and generational scale comes from how some public goods are anti-fragile in their nature. Two different things can both be public goods, but if one is anti-fragile, it will become a global public good. Anti-fragile. Anti-fragile is a property of systems that increase in capability to thrive as a result of stressors, shocks, volatility, noise, mistakes, faults, attacks, or failures. It is a concept developed by Nassim Nicholas Taleb in his book Anti-Fragile. As Taleb explains in his book, anti-fragility is fundamentally different from the concepts of resiliency, the ability to recover from failure, or robustness, the ability to resist failure. Public goods often have qualities of resilience and robustness. Earlier, I called this depletion resistance. But global public goods are anti-fragile. They get better or stronger as more people use them. The key feature behind global public goods is that they benefit from the externalities of the users that consume them. The more a global public good is consumed or used or leveraged, the stronger it gets. Ideas and knowledge are global public goods. When you share an idea, you also retain that idea and you enable others to use it and share it. A good idea can scale to the whole world without subtracting anything from the idea originator or the idea itself. Ideas transcend generations without any decay. Most importantly, an idea improves when more people think about it. Ideas are something to be iterated and expanded upon. These iterations are similarly as scalable and shareable as the original idea itself. Good ideas find themselves being shared, iterated, and developed and adopted faster than bad ideas, which is how a small spark can turn into a revolution in such a short amount of time. Ideas are better if everyone has the same idea. The internet is also a global public good. The use of the internet does not inhibit others from also using it, and the more people use the internet, the more useful it becomes for others. If more things are on the internet, the more utility the internet provides for more people, which brings more users to the internet in the first place, which generates a stronger incentive to build further things upon the internet. The products of Web 2 are anti-fragile at their core. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter all become better products when more of the world is using them. However, the companies that own these products are just as fragile as the rest of the world, and therein lies the problem of the scale of these products. The free rider problem. The free rider problem is the burden on a shared resource that is created by its use or overuse by people who aren't paying their fair share. Streetlights are public goods that require resources to build and consume energy for their operation. This requires taxes upon its users, and anyone not paying taxes places a burden on the ability for a public good to scale and become more useful. This is why streetlights are not a global public good. Their use does not make them more scalable. Global public goods, by definition, are public goods that are immune from the free rider problem. In fact, it's the opposite. Global public goods have mechanisms that bake in some minimum level of contribution to their usage. You, by definition, cannot use a global public good without returning some amount of value, and that amount of value provided is above the minimum threshold needed for keeping the global public good alive and healthy. Simply using the global public good is providing it with the nourishment it needs to sustain itself. Rather than a tragedy of the commons, global public goods instead experience the festival of the commons, where the commons is a place to come together and rejoice in our common usage of a shared utility that improves as the festival grows. Bitcoin is a global public good. Bitcoin lives on because of the strength of its anti-fragility. The value of Bitcoin, the asset, comes from Bitcoin's anti-fragility. Bitcoin's anti-fragility generates the strongest possible assurances for the future settlement of Bitcoins at any time frame, in which turn generates its utility and incentive for use in the first place. Bitcoin succeeds and is itself valued because of its anti-fragility. Any other crypto-economic blockchain system that is born in this space must also exhibit anti-fragile qualities, or else it will be eventually forced to succumb to the rules and paradigms that keep the legacy systems afloat. Laws and regulations by nation states. This is what that's the realm that XRP is in. Things that are anti-fragile don't need laws or regulations to keep them afloat. They support themselves. Anti-fragility is independence from outside help and support. Bitcoin is the first example of a global public good that offers a monetary or financial platform for the world that matches the current state of technology and needs by the citizens of planet Earth. Gold was also a global public good, but it slowly became obsolete and antiquated as new technology subverted its utility. Ethereum is a protocol for global public goods. It's a global public good for global public goods. As discussed in a Bankless Nation Part 2, Ethereum is a protocol for protocols. It is a platform. Ethereum as a platform does the heavy lifting for producing an environment that is favorable for generating global public good applications. Ethereum is a platform that has security and protection baked in at the protocol, which allows for applications to be built that don't need to concern themselves with their individual security and protection. National parks are global public goods because they receive the protection of laws and regulations in the United States. If they did not have this protection, they would either have succumbed to the tragedy of the commons or be divided into private property and be unable to be used or appreciated by the public at large. Imagine the Grand Canyon, but with houses, buildings, streets, plumbing, sewage systems throughout it. It wouldn't be the Grand Canyon, it would be a tragedy. In order to maintain public good status of the national parks, the USA protects them via real rules and regulations. It bottlenecks entry, restricts usage in order to preserve the ability for Grand Canyon to be appreciated by everyone in all future generations. The USA uses tax dollars to support this public good. Without this protection, the national parks wouldn't exist, and they don't have the anti-fragility required to be self-sovereign, self-sustaining public goods. They require outside help. The USA protocol protects and maintains public goods because of the belief that some things that should be public goods, but without protection would deteriorate into private property. Ethereum follows a similar pattern, but instead of local public goods like national parks, is a platform for the creation and protection of global public goods in the realm of money and finance. Uniswap, MakerDAO, Compound are all financial applications Uniswap, MakerDAO, and Compound are all financial applications that are better because they are unrestricted and unregulated. A Uniswap that is a for-profit company under the purview of a nation state is not a Uniswap at all. Permissionless collateralized loans are simply more useful when they are not subject to Wall Street regulations. Borrowing and lending are more efficient when the rules and regulations are baked into the protocol, not administered by a central government. Ethereum is the protocol that offers protections to public goods, which enables them to become global public goods. Because of the security offered by Ethereum, applications can replace the rules and regulations of the nation state with their own rules that protocols designers have deemed optimal for their particular application. Uniswap, Compound, Maker are all given sovereignty by Ethereum. The only rules that Ethereum imparts upon its applications is that they abide by the laws of the EVM. Ethereum is a protocol that enables financial application self-sovereignty. Uniswap. I recently wrote a piece titled Uniswap as Infrastructure that explores a few key points about the Uniswap application. The point of this article was to illustrate Uniswap's anti-fragility and its innate ability to scale to meet the demand of the whole globe, whatever demand that may be. However, I now realize I was actually describing Uniswap as a global public good. Uniswap keeps itself alive by baking in its own nourishment into the protocol. The 0.3% exchange fee is what drives liquidity into the protocol and creates the environment for Uniswap to scale to a global platform. The exchange fee is how Uniswap consumers are simultaneously Uniswap producers. There's no way to use Uniswap without giving back to the protocol. This is Uniswap's anti-fragility and its mechanism for how it rises to global public good status. But is it decentralized? This isn't in reference to Uniswap. This is just the question. We've heard this question endlessly from various different critics of Ethereum and the things being built upon it. What these critics are really asking is whether the product in question has the capacity to become anti-fragile and gain global public good status. Listen to the episode on the DeFi trust spectrum. It is impossible to be a global public good while being under the control of admin keys. Admin keys illustrate power and control over something, which is antithetical to the role and purpose of a global public good. Global public goods are public and require no external protection or support. Therefore, admin keys must be absent from a global public good. The existence of admin keys means there is potential to reduce the trustlessness, permissionless, or credible neutrality, and if this potential exists, it cannot be a global public good. Comp and the governance token revolution. Compound recently debuted its Comp token, which has changed the game for how a protocol on Ethereum moves from being a public good protected by a centralized entity to a global public good with a decentralized set of keepers. While Comp is the most salient example of this, the underlying structure is independent from Comp and is a model that many Ethereum applications can follow to elevate themselves to the status of global public good. This model was illustrated by Gavin McDermott in his article, Meet the SAFG. The SAFG token model is how Ethereum applications elegantly and seamlessly migrate from being a protected public good to an anti-fragile global public good. This is the fundamental reason why the Ethereum DeFi ecosystems are so excited about this new token model paradigm. Protecting the protector. Ether, the asset, is a global public good, and most importantly, it is the global public good that supports the health of the Ethereum ecosystem, which is an ecosystem of more global public goods. All the global public goods on Ethereum, current and future, depend on the value of ETH in order to function. The higher the ETH price, the stronger the protection Ethereum can provide to the global public goods that run on top of it. A rejection of the value of ETH is not just a disservice to those attempting to build something of value on Ethereum, it is a direct attack upon these efforts. This is why I vehemently reject the notion that shilling ETH is bad, and comes out of the mouth of someone who doesn't understand this concept or how it is inextricably tied to any and all efforts surrounding Ethereum and its development. When the price of ETH grows, so do the walls that protect the global public goods on Ethereum. Fortunately, Ether itself is a global public good. It is anti-fragile and does not need the support of others to grow. I've illustrated ETH's destiny in Ethereum in a few articles, which I summarize below through the lens of ETH's destiny as the global public good that protects Ethereum. Like applications on Ethereum, all my articles are composable, and each one builds off the others and makes the others better and more useful. In my opinion, this hits pretty hard and is a good finale to this article. Ethereum is an emergent structure. Applications on Ethereum are composable, and this composability makes applications meld together over time. Rather than being a platform of many individual apps, Ethereum is a single structure of melded applications that are all coalescing together. Ether, as the asset with the highest GPG score on Ethereum, is the point at which this structure gains its initial and strongest foundations. Other assets are welcome and encouraged to aid in the support and foundation of this structure. In fact, other assets are required. You can't build a structure on a single point. Ether, due to its privileged position as the native asset to Ethereum, will always be contributing greater support and foundation to the Ethereum DeFi structure. The weight of this structure is directly correlated to the price of the assets that support it on the secondary market. The fundamental value prop of ETH. Assuming that planned protocol updates are all included, mainly staking and EIP 1559, Ether is given direct exposure to the health and size of the Ethereum economy. The volume of the Ethereum economy will generate ETH scarcity in the form of EIP 1559, the burning of ETH at a rate that follows the size of the Ethereum economy. The scarcity of ETH is directly related to its utility score in the GPG score criteria. The utility of ETH is scarcity. Current and future global public goods on Ethereum will all demand ETH as an asset due to its high GPG score. Lots of global public goods on Ethereum will generate endless demand for ETH. Uniswap is infrastructure. GPGs on Ethereum improve as more people use them. Each global public good can act as infrastructure for other global public goods, but making the creation of new and more useful global public goods easier over time, aka they all stack together. As new global public goods come onto Ethereum, they make pre-existing global public goods more useful in turn. The more global public goods there are, the more better global public goods on Ethereum there are, collectively pushing each other down the protocol sink. When there are many global public goods with high utility at the bottom of the Ethereum protocol sink, the gravitational pull of the collective market cap of all global public good protocols will reach a sphere that is outside of Ethereum. This produces a positive feedback loop in not just global public good numbers, but also global public good utilities, and therefore a dual feedback loop in the incentive to come use Ethereum in the first place. Conclusion. Ethereum is an attractor for global public goods. In Ethereum, anti-fragility begets anti-fragility. The last 2 points in the above Uniswap's infrastructure summary illustrates the future of Ethereum, a landscape of anti-fragile global public goods infrastructure. Currently, there are just a few applications found at the bottom of the protocol sink with just a few $100 million of density found there. Over time, as more mass collects at the bottom, the stronger the influence of the gravitational pull will be. This influence will pull on things higher up in the protocol sink and force them down into the realm of global public goods. The growing mass at the bottom of the protocol sink exerts a gravitational pull that extends beyond the internal Ethereum ecosystem. In addition to the internal Ethereum ecosystem, the capital and assets found in the outside world will also feel the presence of value found at the bottom of the protocol sink. Value is a nebulous thing. The barriers and restrictions of the nation state are not strong enough to prevent value from permeating into Ethereum. Over time, value will migrate onto the world of anti-fragile global public goods. Show me the incentive and I'll show you the outcome. This famous line from Charlie Munger illustrates why I have such strong convictions about the development of the Ethereum ecosystem at maturity, modeled in this article. Global public goods offer incentives too strong to be ignored by the rest of the world. Chris Bernitzky's piece, Protocols as Minimally Extractive Coordinators, illustrates the incentive to adopt Ethereum-based global public good platforms above any other alternative. He concludes his piece with the following 2 sentences. Any unnecessary extraction from the process of exchange is a tax that will ultimately be weeded out by copy-paste competition in the world of open-source protocols. While this presents a brave new world for businesses, minimizing extraction should accrue to the benefit of all consumers. Ethereum is a free market crucible, where competition is so active and harsh that the only things that can survive at the end of the race are anti-fragile global public goods systems. Everything else finds their appropriate place higher up in the protocol sink. I look forward to the Web3 world that the protocol sink will bring. It will be 100 times more useful than Web 2, but with the same fairness and credible neutrality of Web 1. Once it is here, humanity can truly resemble a single global community. Cool. Thanks, everyone, for